Welcome back, Day Camp friends, to episode 17 of the Day Camp Pod. Can you believe it? 17 episodes in. My goodness. November to May, and we're just about to start camp. I'm Andy Pritikin, Director of Liberty Lake in the Philadelphia suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And I'm Ehren Gluckstein from Camp Robin Hood, located just outside of Toronto in Canada.
And we are camp professionals joining forces to provide a forum for day camp pros to share ideas and best practices across North America and beyond. Ehren, how many countries are we up to? It's like 27.
Yeah, we have tons of countries, and I think we're hoping to get more. Even if we've never heard of them, we want more countries.
Yeah, and we really want to increase our Andorra listeners. We have one listener in Andorra. All right, we're looking for 2. We're looking to go 100% more on Andorra.
And we're happy to travel to any of those countries to do live podcasts.
Andorra, if you want us, maybe the country of Andorra could sponsor us. Who the heck knows? 76,000 people in Andorra. So for today's episode, anyhow, we're going to be talking with my man, Adam Baranker from Jeff Lake Camps in the Northern Hills of New Jersey about the ins and outs of day camp social media. And then we have a couple of other special guests too that we're going to introduce in a moment. But first, the Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists, the fine purveyors of the best waterfront, and splash pad products in the world. Check out their website at crs4rec.com because CRS is serious for fun. And this Go Camp Pro podcast is also sponsored in part by the American Camp Association, New York and New Jersey, dedicated to preserving, promoting, and enhancing the quality of the summer camp experience. Their professional development includes the one and only Tri-State Camp Conference, as well as many other professional development opportunities that can be found at ACA And by the way, if you have not listened to our Live at Tri-State 2-part podcast that Adam debuted on, it was really, those 2 podcasts were awesome. We did basically 2 hours of 10-minute interviews with day camp pros. And it was really one of the best things that we put out there, I think. It was just great hitting people up in those short millennial snippets, So anyway, we have my man, Adam. All right. So Adam, I mean, you were on an earlier podcast, so you don't have to go through your life story. All right. But just tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Jeff Lakes and what Jeff Lakes is like.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I was really excited to go through my life story, but I guess I'll hold it back. So for me, I'm born and raised at Jeff Lake. This will actually be my 28th summer there, and I'm 31 years old. So I'll let everyone do the math. But this was, I think in high school, college is when I really started to realize that it wasn't that I just wanted to grow up at camp for my whole life. It was that something I really wanted to make a career out of. So I feel really blessed to kind of be living the dream, as many would say. And, for me, during the camp off season, I do all of our staff hiring. I manage all of the camp social media and marketing. And then during the summer, I still wear those hats, but I transition a little bit into kind of like the director of engagement role. So I do a lot of the programming. I oversee our counselor and training program, our middle school boys program. I still run our color war at camp that I always joke that I hope to be doing still when I'm 90 years old. I'm not giving that up anytime soon. But yeah, kind of a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. We're going to talk about how you handle that in the summer, because that sounds like quite a workload. And there's only so many hours that you are awake during the day, I can imagine. All right. Yeah. So also joining us is Blair Rothstein. Rothstein, give us, how do you say your name?
Rothstein. You got it.
Cool. From Camp Robin Hood in Ontario, Canada. And Blair, what do you do at Camp Robin Hood?
So I am Camp Robin Hood's social media coordinator, otherwise known as the head of media. And so I work with a few people, Gluck, Ehren being one of them.
Gluck, wait a second. We didn't know that was his nickname.
You didn't?
Camp nickname.
Holy mackerel. This has opened up a whole can of worms. All right, keep going. I'm sorry.
We manage the social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook. We do videography, photography, newsletters, all the things.
Oh, that's really awesome. So what do you do here we go. I'm going to ask the question that every camp professional gets asked throughout the year. What do you do the rest of the year? Like, is this what you do the rest of the year?
The rest of the year, so I just finished being a student at the RTA School of Media in Toronto at Ryerson University. So I'm graduating that, but during my time at university, I interned for nationally recognized radio stations, for nationally recognized online digital publications, doing social media, doing writing, a bunch of things. And now I work for Global News Radio, which is a leading radio station here in Toronto, doing a show about culture and diversity. So I do the social media and I produce that as well.
Awesome. Camp Robin Hood is lucky to have you. And by the way, I have to point out Gluck that she said about. All right. Blair said about, not a boot. She said it the American.
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that you used to be American? Is that what that means? Are you undercover?
No, I am full Canadian.
Really?
But Toronto, you know, we talk a lot like the Americans.
You watch
do.
a lot of American sitcoms. Just say it.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Okay. I know.
American Netflix.
All right. So that's cool. So we got 31-year-old Ehren. We're going to say like 22-year-old Blair or something, right? And now we're going down to 17-year-old Shelby Deibler from Liberty Lake. So Shelby, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shelby. I'm also from New Jersey. I've gone to Liberty Lake for about 10 years, and now I am their social media coordinator. I kind of have a similar position to Blair. I keep track of their social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and I'm trying to get them on Snapchat or something where younger kids are on to build more interaction.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that. That's
Yeah.
an interesting thing. So in general, you know, Baranker, you keep your eye all over the social media landscape of day camps, right? So what do you think the industry standard, the typical day camp that's not Liberty Lake or Jeff Lake or Camp Robin Hood with a media director and such, like it seems to me that most camps are pretty happy having a website at this point, and then maybe they're on Facebook, right? And generally they've been, you know, creating sort of like a brochure version of themselves in their social media. Right, that's basically been it, right? I mean, what do you think? What's your thoughts on just what the landscape is like?
Yeah, you know, I think one thing is so crazy is that the landscape is going to be different tomorrow after we're done with this conversation. That's how quick it changes. But I think, you know, for me, let's rewind maybe 6 years. It was all about Facebook, right? Everyone was on Facebook. Facebook was the big thing. That's where people were putting out all their stuff. And then I started to realize that really Facebook was only for the parents. And then Instagram came out, and then, you know, everyone, you know, all of our campers, all of our staff, they were on Instagram. The parents are on Instagram also. But really kind of what I think I had to start to realize was that everything has to kind of be in its own lane, right? So for me, Jeff Lake Camp Facebook, I'm talking to the parents, I'm promoting open houses and prospective camper events. And really on Instagram, I'm just trying to engage my campers and my staff and the parents that are on there as well. So I think that, you know, for most camps that I've seen, they're kind of doing those two things. I think Facebook and Instagram is kind of the two main sources.
So would you say, as the media coordinator of Jeff Lake, would you say that it's that order for you on Instagram, that it's camper, staff, and parents in that order? Because that's how you said it. So I'm just curious what you think. Or is it equal? Like, what do you think?
That's a really good question. I would say that it's pretty equal between camper and staff. Also, too, the thing with day camp is our staff at Jeff Lake, you're going into your junior year of high school. So for me, that's still a kid. No offense, Shelby. You know, you're the 12, 13-year-old camper, and then you're very quickly the 16-year-old staff member. So I think for camper and staff, it's pretty even. But I do see a lot of our parents engaging on Instagram now too. I just think that they're communicating differently on Facebook than they are on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think that it's a very generational thing, right? Like, you know, the Gen Xers are on Facebook generally. The millennials are on Instagram generally. And as Shelby was inferring, the Gen Zs are on Insta, but also Snapchat and such, right? I mean, do you think that's a valid assessment? Because I think, Adam, I think that my parents are actually younger than your parents because of my clientele. I just think so. And that's why I think I have more on Instagram than maybe you have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I also think, too, Instagram did a very smart thing a couple of years ago where they really made it a one-stop shop. So you can get your news on Instagram. You can get your, you know, on DM, which is the direct message. That's how Gen Z is now communicating. They're DMing more than they're texting. You can get photos. there's advertisements. So I think what I'm seeing more and more is Gen Z is really kind of using Instagram almost as their main platform that, you know, yes, they have a phone, but it's almost like their phone is their Instagram. That's what they're holding every day. Yes, they're on Snapchat too, but I think the way that Instagram has kind of curated their market to be, you know, you could really do anything you need in Instagram was really smart. And that's how I'm using it for camp too. I'm using it as a one-stop shop also.
Interesting. Shelby, what do you think? What do you think about millennials' point of view there?
I think it's semi-accurate in the way that Instagram is definitely the main social media platform, but I think for more communicating or communication-wise, like instead of texting, it's definitely going to be either through Instagram DMs or Snapchat DMs. It's not really, we're not using text as much. I noticed something about like nobody's really commenting on photos anymore. It used to be the thing to like ask somebody to like and comment on your photo. Now it's just how many likes.
Blair, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Shelby. I think definitely Instagram. I think Instagram is the central hub of what millennials are using. I think it's interesting though, for Robinhood in particular, we have a lot of parents who use Instagram, who follow the page, who comment. The parents are commenting more than the kids, but they comment a lot and engage a lot. So I think it's also just like super dependent on, you know, the area, the type of people, the clients. But the way I see Instagram is it's just so good for everything and for everybody.
So Baranker and Kaluk, as my millennial representatives, just imagine yourselves a few years down the road, married with children, because both you guys actually engaged, right? And
Yeah, I'm getting married in 19 days.
Right. So I mean, when you're saying one-stop shop for Instagram, I mean, is that really how mid-30s people you think are using Instagram? Are they really going there for their news? I mean, you guys text, right? You guys don't send Instagram DMs so much, do you? I mean, I just don't know. Please let us know.
I mean, I can speak just quickly because Adam's insight, I know he's more of a pro on this than I am, but just, you know, from my perspective, Facebook became a medium for people in my age group that really you can really get lost in. A lot of time gets spent and wasted, you know, just getting involved with commenting and reading people's opinions on things, and people get, we're hearing about people becoming radicalized through Facebook because of things that are going on, right? So you can really spend a lot of time and get lost in it. And I think that when Instagram kind of gives that like clean, more fresh approach, it's more fun, it's more playful, less about the getting lost in your thoughts, and more about just interacting with people more directly. So that's sort of the approach that I've taken with my social media use, but I'm not I'm not a very engaged social media user personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Instagram all the time. For me, the explore page, which is another thing Instagram did that was so smart, is it's really pulling stuff right off of your social media page. So for me, I always joke that my explore page is always stuff about the New York Jets and stuff about cheese, because I love food and I love the New York Jets. So it's, for me, I can get all my stuff right there. And what happens too is that for me, which we'll get into in a little bit, but I'm also, now interacting with my Gen Z staff and campers on Instagram. So now that I'm friends with them, Instagram is also pulling stuff on my explore page that they're following. So for me, it's been an amazing tool to kind of see the Gen Z explore page of what is hot for them. And it's how I get programs at camp, and it's how I know what memes they think are funny. And it kind of gives me more street cred with them when summer rolls around. But I kind of agree, I am still using, iMessage to communicate with my peers. But I've definitely used DM on Instagram as a camp director a lot, talking to my staff. We've enrolled some campers through DM this summer, people that were once with Jeff Lake and now coming back, and they've reached out to me to see how to kind of re-enroll. So just kind of this little world that Instagram has been really cool to watch unfold the past couple of years.
Okay, I need your guys' help. In my situation, we're a big organization, so we have a marketing department, but they tend to do Facebook and Instagram, but what they put up are flyers. pictures of the flyers that we're handing out for each of our programs, and that's not very interesting. So what are some things I should be telling them about how to make it more appealing, what they're putting out there?
Great question.
Yeah, you know, for me, I think I always look at Instagram as like memory sharing. So from the day camp ends to the day camp opens the following year, the whole off season, you know, the 10 of the 10 for 2, I am constantly posting just memories from the past summer. So it's re-engaging, you know, my current families, but it's also showing perspectives, what we did the previous summer. I'm also always posting, whenever I post on Instagram, I post on Facebook as well. But for those flyers, I do still post those flyers on Facebook a little bit, just because, you know, we do have open houses that we want people to come to, and we do have spring carnivals and stuff like that. And I think parents are okay with that on Facebook, but I'm not posting that on Instagram, because I think if one of my 7th graders swipes past a flyer, they're going to DM me and be like, Branker, what are you doing? Like, be cool. And I'm like, I'm trying. Yeah,
that's great. That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know at Liberty Lake, Shelby's been handling so much, but there are times that I'll post things just on Facebook to go for, like, you know, the more announcement-y kind of things, right? Because I think, like you said, it's more appropriate. I don't want to lose credibility with the younger kids too. And I have to tell you, ever since I put my youngster here, Shelby, on Instagram, like, people are just much more engaged than they were than when I was doing it and older people were doing it. You know, she speaks the language of the younger folks, and she's got the layout of how Instagram posts are made by most people nowadays. I think that's important. I mean, honestly, when I look at the way she posts and then I see other big Instagrams, like I wouldn't even know how to do that, right? Like, really, I guess you learn from watching people, watching other Instagram accounts that are really good, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think also too, Shelby, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Andy. I think, like, definitely a way to learn is either through researching what other camps or even big businesses, like, that you might follow on Instagram, how they have a social media presence. That's what I was looking at, versus how normal people interact, and finding that medium in between. And I think, to go back to the point previously made about what appeals to people on Instagram is definitely about the photo and less about the caption. So if you have a really stellar photo, that's what's going to make the caption stand out. Thanks.
And you know, just from my perspective, I see that, you know, I see the way Blair works on our posts, and it's almost an art form. Like, she really puts a lot of time and effort into, like, the perfect photo, and, like, just, you know, making it look great. And I mean, maybe it's not a lot of effort, but I mean, when I look at it, it is, because, you know, she just knows how to capture it and do it in a, you know, really artistic way. And that's how we're, you know, those posts that she puts up are way more engaging than the stuff that, you know, me or Howie, the owner of Robinhood, puts up. So although Howie, if you're listening, you do an amazing job. I love what you do, but it's not, it doesn't have the millennial touch, you know, that Blair's able to put on it. And doing that, we really do get some great engagement, and then people, you know, people who are, and for us, I just want to say this because we were talking about reaching out to campers, like, as a day camp, with the biggest part of our camper base being, like, in the 4 to 8 year old range. We don't really have campers engaging on social media. We have older kids at our camp to a smaller extent, and so the parents are the target both on Facebook and on Instagram.
Right.
So my first thing I need to do is get some better photographs, get lots of them, feed them to marketing, and hope that they tell a better story.
Yeah, I mean, going back to our podcast with Matt Kaufman a few months ago, right? When investing in a photographer, investing in a videographer, very smart investments in 2019, right? For helping, not just showing people what's going on at that moment, but, like Adam said, being able to parse it out over the year and keeping that flavor going, right? So we've been touching on a big point that I want to flesh out a little bit, which is, for most day camps over the past, 15, since the onslaught of Facebook, we've been really militant about keeping our staff away from the children right? Because we say no good could come from it. That's what my insurance company told me. And we say unfriend the kids. Don't, keep your things on private. Don't let them do this. Don't let them do this. And we were nuts about it. And then Adam has been championing the concept of, no, engage your kids. You have these kids. Now I understand, Ehren, what you're saying. And there's many day camps out there that, the bulk of their day camps are really young elementary school kids, right? But there are plenty of day camps out there like Adam's and mine, but we have a lot of older kids too. And why not have them be championing your camp? And Adam, if you could just touch on why you feel that we're in safer times now in a way with this generation of kids.
Yeah, totally. So I think, I had kind of this light bulb moment one night where I was thinking about all the stuff that we have at camp, right? And we have, at Jeff Lake, we have swimming pools, we have the ropes course, and we have our social media presence, right? There's inherent risks at our pool, but I want kids to go swimming this summer. There's inherent risks at our ropes course, but the kids love that zip line. And there's inherent risks on social media, but I want my kids to engage during the off season and memory share with each other. So, for me, I see that, if I don't want to get rid of my pools, I don't want to get rid of my ropes course, and I don't want to get rid of social media. So I really kind of tried to change my mindset of how I can kind of engage this population in a better way and have it be something that we're really using to our benefit. And I think one thing that's helped that, this is nothing that Jeff Lake did, is that Gen Z is just much cleaner and more curated on social media than millennials and even the kind of top of, the bottom of Gen X were. My millennials were called the Red Solo Cup generation, because we went to college and we were just posting every picture that we wanted no employer to see. And, I would probably be so embarrassed if I looked back at my college Facebook page. But Gen Z has kind of learned from those mistakes. And, they're really into celebrities whose brands are so thoughtful and so clean. And that, in 2019, we have this cancel culture where you make one wrong move, everyone turns on you. So they're kind of seeing that. And I'm not nervous for what my staff is sharing on social media anymore. So if one of my middle school campers is following their high school staff member on Instagram, I don't have that same fear that I did with the Red Solo Cup generation, that I couldn't believe what they might be seeing on those accounts.
So great. Blair, what do you think about that? Do they talk about this kind of thing in your degree of social media?
100%. Cancel culture is huge. And because it's so big and it can ruin a lot of, much like we discussed, celebrities' lives, kids are being a lot more receptive to that. And they're really learning how to put their best foot forward on the internet. And so we have, staff members who follow our SITLIT campers and vice versa. And it, just from my perspective on social media and running it, it hasn't been a huge issue. I know we always have lawyers come up and say to keep away from that, but times have changed and it isn't as big of an issue as it used to be.
That's great. Shelby, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think definitely my generation has cleaner social media. I think that's for a number of reasons. I know for me right now, college is a major concern and future employers. And I think that's on everyone's mind right now. But I think that my generation has definitely learned from the mistakes of the generations before us with just posting anything. I would say we might even have an unhealthy relationship with how clean our social media is. Because anything that is imperfect, we Photoshop out or Facetune out. So I think that this cleanliness of social media can have its pros and cons.
All right, hold on. Help me and Sam. What's Facetune?
You can redesign your face with an app and is more used than ever, especially during prom season as people post photos. I would say more girls use it than guys, but if you go through any girl's Instagram, it's been Facetuned probably 100%.
Interesting. So Adam, instead of just crossing your fingers and hope that all goes well, you've taken a very intentional approach with talking about it with your campers and staff. So can you talk about that?
So we've always had a social media contract during our staff orientation where we kind of made them sign off. And like I said, rewind 7 years. and it was the finger wagging. If you're in any Jeff Lake shirt on social media doing something you shouldn't, if you're friends with a camper, if you're taking a picture at camp when you shouldn't, all that kind of stuff, you know, check, check, check. And last year was really the first year that I made a shift, that I said to myself, why don't I sit down with these staff members at orientation and talk about their social media presence and talk about their personal brand? Because like, you know, Blair and Shelby, we all just kind of said, you know, there is this, everyone's kind of curating their own brand now. You know, there's this word now in social media, which is your aesthetic, and everyone has their different aesthetic on their social media page. You know, just a quick sidebar, Taylor Swift just came out with a new song and changed her whole Instagram aesthetic to be what the music video was going to look like before the music video even came out. And, you know, that's how kind of on the pulse all of this is. And I said, you know, let's sit down and talk about what you want your personal brand to be, whether it's your Jeff Lake personal brand, what your personal brand is in school. And I kind of just gave them some tips and tricks about how to be smart on social media. So I'm not, you know, totally ripping the Band-Aid and telling them what they can and cannot do.
It's really great. So what are there, let's touch on the Snapchat thing for a moment, right? So can I guess that Jeff Lakes is just, are you Facebook and Insta, or are you going elsewhere?
We are just Facebook and Instagram.
Right, that's what we are. And Camp Robin Hood, that's what you guys are?
Yeah, like there seems to be, and I don't know if this is, again, my slightly out of touch perspective, but there seems to be and maybe Blair can weigh in, but there seems to be like a decline of the use of Snapchat here, and you know, Instagram's really taken everything over. So we're focused on Instagram, and you can actually manage your Instagram account as a business through you know, through Facebook, and they have the back end that allows you to do all that and manage the DMs that you're getting and all that stuff. So it's pretty efficient. And
what do you mean manage the DMs you're getting?
Like the direct messages people are sending can come through or you can manage them through the back end of Facebook and be able to see, you know, what your engagement is, and there's actually tools. I'm not using them currently, but there's tools that help automate some of the processes of receiving messages and you know, distributing them to people within your organization who are the best people to deal with them. So you can actually either you can have an account, you can give access to different people in your office and assign messages to different people in your office so that they can deal with those. So like almost like a workflow. I guess it is a workflow. Or you can have you know, you can have tools that like third-party tools that allow the messages to come into your account and then be distributed and maybe even auto respond, that kind of thing.
Right. Because I gotta say, as like the 50-year-old guy, it does stress me out that like, okay, I'm getting voicemails, I'm getting emails, I'm getting Facebook messages, I'm getting DMs on Instagram, like, you know, and, you know, I'm getting on my personal account, I'm getting on my business account, you know, it's like, it could give you a little anxiety. Or as Bob Ditter would say, stress. I'm sorry, stress.
But yeah, maybe Blair can just weigh in on the Snapchat thing.
Yeah, as far as Snapchat goes, Snapchat, you know, their thing when they launched was one of the things was stories. And now that Instagram has stories, it makes Snapchat not as at the center of social media usage, at least for me and my age range anyways. So when you think about Instagram, like we mentioned, it is a one-stop shop. So we just capitalize on that first and foremost. We have a Snapchat account. I believe it's been dormant for a bit. We should probably bring that back because younger kids are on Snapchat. But again, Instagram just offers all of those things in one place. So it is the most convenient.
Right. Because my question would be, what would a camp Snapchat account look like? Like, what would you be snapping, you know?
I think camp Snapchat account would be way less aesthetically curated. Our Instagram account, if you go on it, you see like this nice flow of pictures, same colors, same feel, same everything. A Snapchat account is way more off the cuff, way more casual, just like hey, this is what's happening right here, right now, as opposed to just a more thought out post, in my opinion, at least.
No, I agree. But then, you know, like Adam was saying, you know, what we're doing during the year, during the off season, like it really wouldn't be relevant because like the whole thing about Snapchat is all about relevance and right now, right? So it would be, to me, it would really be like not real to me. I can't envision it. Shelby, what do you think?
I think that Snapchat, I think that Blair said it, I think it's definitely more my age group and maybe even younger that are using it primarily. The stories are definitely, I think, for what's happening at the moment, but I think it could build a lot of engagement, especially at things like open houses, because people love geotags. If you buy a geotag for the camp, everybody will use it. I know, discouraging cell phone usage at camp, but at things like open houses or the family night, having that and getting the Liberty Lake or Jeff Lake's camp brand out there and their other friends will see it, I think that is very important. And it's something that Instagram doesn't have quite yet.
We actually have it at our main beach. They use it for a lot of weddings and picnics and other things, so they actually have some for that location.
Yeah,
Haven't used it yet.
We have a couple pokey stops too, by the way. Those are pretty good, I have to tell you. Those are big. So let's just talk about the stories for a second, because you know, we're sitting here and most of us have a pretty high level of social media vocabulary. But when I hired Shelby back in the fall and she was like, oh, you got to do Instagram stories. I was like, that's great. What's an Instagram story, right? And then she started making them and then like got it, you know, 200 likes on the first one. I was like, wow, I guess people actually use these. So Blair, because as a social media professional, you're going to have to be able to speak to older people about this. So how would you explain stories?
I would explain an Instagram story as either a preview of a post, because you can promote a post through a story, or you could do an Instagram story again as just more of a real what's happening now type of way. Instagram stories are really unique because you can either do a live stream from them, you can do video, you can do a boomerang, which is like this GIF-like picture. Stories, you can play around with them so much and they're so innovative. So a story, I think, can be either an extension of a post or an entirely new thing. It really is like just so, it's something that is so flexible and that everyone will like.
Gotcha. Adam, Shelby, you want to chime in on stories? Do you use stories, Adam?
Yeah, I do. And I totally agree with Blair. You know, one thing that's kind of crazy is the engagement on stories is so high. You know, if I do a post for Jeff Lake, it might get 125 likes. If I post a story, it gets almost 600, 700 views sometimes.
Wow.
And I think also, too, one thing with Gen Z, those little funny Gen Zers, they really don't like to be annoyed by their social media. That's a big thing. So listen, 10 years ago, commercials became so annoying that now we fast forward through them, right? So they really want everything to be something they want to hit them in the face. And I think sometimes over posting is something that can be seen as annoying. But I think that the stories, since they kind of go away, you can kind of click through them quickly. It doesn't feel like an overpost. So I think that, you know, if you have a big thing you want to do, throw it up in a post that'll stay there. People can look back on. But if you have some quick kind of things you want to just shoot off, the stories are really good for that, because I don't think that Gen Z, and Shelby, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are getting as annoyed if people are posting on their stories at a higher rate.
So what kind of things do you use stories for, Adam?
So we do them for a lot. We do surveys on our stories. So there's a poll option. That's really fun. So, you know, I will say, you know, at Jeff Lake, we have barbecue every Wednesday and pizza every Friday. So one time I did, all right, Jeff Lakers, what do you think? What's better, barbecue Wednesdays or pizza Fridays? And everyone was voting. And it's really fun because it's engaging them. But then also, too, I can kind of take a step back and say, all right, barbecue is a lot more popular than our pizza, you know? So it's kind of mutually beneficial. I will also do it from a more live standpoint. So if we're having an open house at camp, I will take pictures as it's happening. But what's kind of nice about the stories is I don't feel like they have to be as live as Snapchat. So like Blair was kind of saying, I can kind of still edit those a little bit and kind of piece them all together. I think people really like Snapchat to truly be live. What you're doing at that moment, you throw it right up. But I can kind of almost fake live a little bit on Instagram by just kind of getting some pictures together, putting them into a story. And it kind of gives a picture of that day and that event, but it still is curated the way I want it to be.
Shelby, what's your thoughts on stories?
I really like the Instagram story. I think it's more effective than posting. Obviously, you want to have something to refer back to in your Instagram story, like new post GIF or like our recent picture, stuff like that, because that's what's going to get more traction, not only on your other social media websites, but onto your website. I think that Instagram stories, it's in the name, it's to tell your story. So if that means you're promoting a new event, or maybe you're just looking to have a survey or a quick poll, something like that, it's getting people to interact with you without having to necessarily talk.
Yeah, well, I think that stories are great for people like Shelby and Blair, who are doing this like as either a side gig or their profession, because from a Gen Xer's perspective, they just terrify me. Like I try to make them, and I feel like I'm not speaking the right language, like to do it. So, anyway, so let's talk about some best practices, some things that because there's plenty of camps out there that really don't do much. Right. So let's say that I'm a camp that's got a Facebook business page. Hallelujah. I got that going. Right. And how do we make the Facebook business page better? Right. By the way, Facebook has stories too. Does anyone even use those? Like, are those relevant? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, you can add them. You can link your Instagram and Facebook stories. Sometimes I'll do that.
Really?
But if I feel like sometimes Facebook doesn't have the same features, I will only do it on Instagram because it tends to get more interaction than on Facebook.
Gotcha. So Blair, if you were advising a camp of how to just, make their Facebook page better, just going back to Sam's comment about like how some places just put their, make a JPEG out of a PDF of a flyer and post that. Like, let's go 101 or 102 for a camp. How do we make their Facebook page more engaging?
I would say daily posts. At Robinhood, we do daily photo albums that have about 100 pictures, sometimes more, of just everything that happened in the day. So that's important, so that parents every day can go back to this page and say, okay, I'm going to see what my kid did today at the exact same time every day. So just having something to reel them back in is always good. Making use of promoting posts is always great, and boosting them. So you can choose a target demographic that the post will get to, so show up on their page. You can choose how much money you want to spend on it, how much people the post will reach. Just making use of all the tools and making sure that people have a reason to come back to your page.
Right. So let me clarify my question just a little bit more too. In regards to off season, right? Because during the season, we all sort of get it. Like it's almost like a running blog of how things are going, right? But keeping people engaged in the off season, I think, is the challenge for most people. So besides posting a picture, like a really cool picture from the summer, like what are some cool things that camps can do to get some engagement going?
We're big on countdowns. Again, we do like to utilize, every day at the same time, check back for this. So we do a lot of countdowns for registration rates. You have 10 more days to get the best price. So we'll post pictures from that with cool little graphics on them. What else do? We do a lot of just highlighting different types of areas in camp, so highlighting different activities. It's always just about getting people to come back next summer. Just making sure that they know that the camp Facebook is still a place that they can find memories, that they can find information about the upcoming summer.
Gotcha. And if Baranker, if we're starting an Instagram, if a camp is starting an Instagram account, what advice would you give them?
I think first is definitely almost like making a mental mission statement for what you want the page to look like. I think aesthetic is so big. I feel funny even using that word when talking about social media, but it's so true. Listen, the Jeff Lake aesthetic is shades of blue. It's pictures of our lake. You can really get a vibe when you look at it. So I think you kind of have to say, what's our camp vibe that we want to get out there? But the other little tip I would give if you're starting is I'm very big on current pictures. There was a big trend like 3 or 4 years ago where like the Throwback Thursday was such a big deal. And I was always posting pictures of a picture from the 80s that was black and white of color war that I thought was so cool and I was connected to because that was a cool old picture of directors that I remembered. But our Gen Zers, they want to see themselves. They want to see what's going on right now. So I think that if you have this awesome backlog of pictures that you have that you want to throw up there for alumni, really try to use current photos. You know, I always joke now that we're entering May, I'm getting a little dry with the pictures that I have from last summer. I'm ready for a new summer to start because I'm at the bottom of the barrel. But I think, you know, really current pictures, you know, for a day camp, a real good mix of ages. You know, every post shouldn't be of middle school campers. You know, even throw some staff pictures up so they can see their counselors, and that gets them excited. I think just, yeah, really kind of knowing your brand and putting a mission statement out there for what you want the page to look like is super important.
That's great. And I think you post more than most people, I think, or most camps, let me say. So what is your recommended number of posts, assuming you have the artillery to do it?
So I'm going to make myself sound so type A right now because it really is so calculated. I never post 2 days in a row. I always have a skip day, maybe a skip day or two. I think posting every day can, like I was saying, how Gen Z doesn't like to be annoyed by their social media. So I always try to skip a day. But I think, you know, in a 7-day week, if you do 3 or 4 posts, I think, you know, that is a good number. A couple stories during the week. And people could disagree, but I'm very big on that. You should not be posting every day. You know, the Gen Z, they're so loyal to their brands. I think more so than any generation, and they do get annoyed very easily. You know, like I'm the generation that would get annoyed by like the spam emails from companies, and it's kind of the same thing. You know, I always got that J. Crew email, you know, over and over again. But I think that it's kind of the same thing. So I think like an every other day, every 2-day kind of thing is great. And then obviously like a huge variety in the photo. So if Monday you post a picture of a lake activity, your post on Wednesday should not be of a lake activity also. You need some good variety.
And by the way, we're implying here that when he posts on Instagram, it also reposts on Facebook. So we're talking about the same thing, right?
Correct. Yep.
Blair, what's your thoughts on how much to post, especially in the off season?
I mean, we're different. We don't post all the way through the off season like every other day. We are more of an opposite. We do post every day for a certain period of time. We have more focused campaigns during the off season, again, of just registration rates of we did like a best of CRH to get new families in the know about what we have to offer and what our standout programs are, so things like that. So we take smaller campaigns that go on every day as opposed to just consistency just spread out through the year. I think there are benefits to both, and it all just depends on, I guess, just preference of the camp.
Right. All right. And I agree. Shelby, so from someone who is 17, typical staff member at a day camp, right? What kind of stuff do you want to see as a user, right? Coming through, like when, you know, what do you want to, what kind of stuff gets a typical 17-year-old think engaged?
I think definitely the Gen Z is a little bit conceited. We like to see ourselves a lot. So with those throwback pictures, I recently tried, a few weeks back, I posted a Throwback Thursday picture, but asking people to send theirs if they had any that they knew of. And I did get a few responses. I think that is important, that there's that interaction that they submit and then you post. But I think that the break days are also good, because I can get a little annoyed sometimes with other accounts that post too much, but I don't think we do. I try to do like an Instagram story heavy day and not post, or maybe post and do a light story. I try to have some variety. I think Gen Z and myself are really into having variety.
So all you Gen Xers out there, have someone show you how to get to stories, because they are pretty cool, but someone does have to show you where they are. Okay, they're not really obvious. Adam, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just want to add one thing. Just you know, when Blair's talking about the kind of things that we do and how you know, we do different things throughout the year. There is an element of creativity that comes into play, like a major element of creativity. Blair has a lot of insight, obviously, into, you know, her generation and what they what they're doing, or what they're interested in, but at the same time, you know, switching it up and not having like a calculated plan like we used to really define days, and, you know, okay, Monday is going to be this, Tuesday is going to be this, Wednesday is going to be this, and we had a really strict plan that we would stick to. And I don't think that that's so relevant anymore. And Blair's, you know, creativity comes into play, like I said, and you know, we kind of switch things on the fly in terms of our approach, especially in the off season.
So, by the way, there are many Camp Robin Hoods. We've busted your chops about that before, but you guys actually own Camp Robin Hood on Instagram. So kudos on grabbing that. All right. And
Instagram came out.
And Shelby and I are at Liberty Lake Day Camp, and Adam is at Jeff Lake Camp, right? And Sam, what's Crystal Lake?
Crystal Lake Park District.
Okay. Adam, I was going to ask you, for people who are just getting into this, what other camps would you recommend we check out on social media? I want to give a shout out to our buddy at Camp Chinquica, because she does a great job also.
Yeah, Amanda is awesome. Yeah. And that was a great segue, because I think that day camps should definitely not just be following other day camps. I sometimes get my best material from the resident camps, you know, and everything is transferable. Every kind of tone you see, you know, we're all the 10 for 2, regardless of what kind of camps we are. But yeah, Amanda does an amazing job. She's engaging her campers all the time. And one thing that I think she does better than anyone I know right now is really being a camp director that is on Instagram with her kids all the time. So she does live stories where she's just sitting on her couch eating dinner, and the girls are asking questions and she's just answering them. Or, you know, it could be, you know, that she's doing surveys and DMing them their answers. Oh my God, you said grilled cheese is your favorite lunch. It's mine too. Hope you're having a great school year, and stuff like that. But I think, you know, yeah, I think really just typing in all different kinds of camps and not just looking for camps that are kind of in your pocket. You know, all the TLC camps do a great job. You know, Timberlake, Sleepaway Camp, Tyler Hill, they do a really great job. You know, Camp Ramacoy does a great job. You know, I think there's a lot of, you know, if you just type in camp in there and kind of see what shows up, I think you can get good nuggets from a variety of different camps. But like I said, if you're a day camp, don't just look for a day camp.
Yeah, well, that's a really important point, and I'm glad you said it, because think about resident camps, right? They really have to work hard to get community. Our kids all live in the same neighborhoods, or like within a 30-mile radius of each other. You know, a sleepaway camp, they're all over the world, right? And they have mostly older campers that are all engaged on social media for the most part, right? So yeah, definitely check out the resident camps, no doubt about it. I think what Adam says is a great idea is go into the search and type camp and see what comes up. Use some hashtags or whatnot. All right, any closing thoughts about social media at Day Camp 2019? Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Blair. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you guys' wisdom.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we do have a little segment called the Day Camp Tip of the Week. By the way, I took out the program tip of the week because we're starting to run a little dry on my program thing. So we're just going Day Camp Tip of the Week now. And it's brought to you by our friends at AM Skyer, the leading insurance broker for the finest camps in America for almost 100 years. AM Skyer has been a strategic partner with summer camps ready to support any needs arising from PR, legal issues, health facility, and more. Experience the AM Skyer difference. So my tip of the week, I am going to credit the Ben Applebaum camps from back in the day when I used to work with Ben and Skip Victus and Jeff Ackerman and that crew. We used to do a thing back then, which I don't do to the fullest extent, where we had the group leaders of each group fill out daily reports. Now at Liberty Lake, we do weekly reports in which each group gets a printout of all the kids in their group for that week, has their years of camp, how many weeks they're at camp that summer, and then they have to fill in a very simple how they're doing with their kids in their group from 1 to 5, how they're doing with their staff from 1 to 5, a little survey thing. Then what's their favorite activity? Who are their friends, right? And then a little comment section. And this is for each kid in each group each week. At my camp, we do it weekly. And then on the back page, they actually have to write a couple paragraphs of how the group is doing in general, right? So we do this on Wednesdays so that their division leaders can get it by Thursday. So they have a couple days to potentially call some parents and ask some questions to remedy some situations that they may see. And then on the weekend, on Friday afternoon, as everybody's leaving, they put them all into my inbox. And then I have 50 to 60 of those things to go through during the weekend that I highlight and circle things also. And then the next week, I can talk about with the unit leaders and say, hey, did you talk to this kid? What happened here? And all that kind of thing. And it's a great way to sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and follow up. And also, it helps make the staff know that they are accountable to my division leaders, and also help the division leaders know that they're accountable to me. So anyway, I throw that out there to you guys.
That's great. Bob Ditter used to have kind of a form that was a quickie. What do you know about this child that you were doing the first day? So the second day you'd remember every child in your group. And it was a start to that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, well, that's certainly important for them to know their kids like right away the first couple of days. That's a big deal because a lot of people don't have the same kind of memory to hang on to those names and things. So you do need some tricks. It's true. So Sam, what do you got?
I'm still programming.
Great.
I want to bring back statue tag. So while you have somebody who's it, and as they tag you, you have to freeze in whatever position you were in when they tagged you. Although the kids usually create all sorts of really weird positions as soon as they're tagged. And they have to stay that way until someone who isn't tagged runs up and tags them and frees them, essentially. So the one who's it can never get to everybody before the other person gets them out of being frozen. So it's one of those games that can take up a lot of time, transitions, whatever, no equipment's needed, and just keeps going. So.
Tag, being kept alive by day camp, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, statue tag.
Ehren, what you got? By the way, Adam, I hope you have one because we're going to hit you up too. All right.
So just, well, first of all, just to add on to what, Andy, what you were saying, just the idea of doing camp reports, something that actually is historically was part of our protocol back in the, up until I think the 90s, it was being done like a daily camper reports. Maybe late 80s it stopped, but it was something that was important from a customer service standpoint. And I think if you could still do that and have the staff put in the time to do that, it really does help your customer service because and keeps you on the finger, keeps your finger on the pulse of what's going on as a director. We tried something, not a camper, not a written report, but recently we tried something where we were handing out sort of like a weekly summary for the parents to look at. And so basically having a pre-printed thing that report that we generated from our management system where we could get the first names of all the campers in the group and have a couple of sort of pick symbols and have the counselors circle them with the kids so that they could go home and basically use it as a conversation starter to talk to their kids about what they did at camp and how that week, that day, week, whatever, however frequently you want to put these out. It's a great way to alleviate that. What did you do today? Answer nothing, or I don't remember, the kind of questioning, and then the parents call us to say that we're not doing anything with their kids because their kids told us that, told them that they weren't doing anything. So I think that's been a great tool for us. And I'll leave it at that, even though I was going to talk about a program tip. I think this was a good thing to,
that's cool. Maybe we can upload examples of what we're talking about to our daycamppodcast.com website in the show notes. We'll send it to our man, Matt, up in Canada. All right, Adam Baranker, it's Jeff Lake time.
It is, yeah. So mine kind of goes along with the topic that we've kind of just been talking about for the past hour, which is the idea of how easily Gen Z gets bored and needs a bit of a shakeup. So my day camp tip is to not be afraid to change the name of a special event while keeping it exactly the same. Just change the name. So just as an example, we did Senior Camp Minute to Win It for a long time. It's kind of a staff show. We bring the staff on stage. For our older campers, we put their staff in really funny positions and activities, and they eat it up, seeing their counselors do kind of embarrassing things. And then all of a sudden I had this moment one off season where I said, I don't know that a new episode of Minute to Win It has been on TV in about 10 years. So I was like, why am I still calling it that? So then we literally just changed it to Senior Camp Challenge, all the same activities, different name. Did that for like 3 years. And then I started to feel like that was getting dry a little bit. So this summer we're going to be calling it Senior Camp Game of Games, to kind of be a spinoff of the Ellen Show Game of Games, which is going to be really just the same stuff, same special event, same groups that are involved, but I can kind of rebrand it every year to keep my Gen Z campers thinking that we're changing things up a little bit for them.
That's awesome. I love that little tweak. That's the kind of thing that, you know, especially at a day camp like ours, where we print the calendar out months in advance and kids are like looking at it and wondering what the heck it is. And then it ends up being something that they've already done. That's such an awesome day campy idea. All right. So thanks a lot again, Jeff Lake Camp. All right. Hit him up on Insta. Okay. Adam might actually return. He might return your direct message. Yeah. I certainly will not. Shelby will return mine, and Blair will return it at Camp Robin Hood. All right. Think of all the jealous Robin Hood camps out there. Think of that you guys got Camp Robin Hood. Congratulations on that.
Like I said, I was on it the day that Instagram was launched.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Good man. Good man. All right, so we want to thank our executive producer, the Camp Maverick himself, Mr. Goat Camp Pro, Travis Allison, for helping get this show out to you. And, you know, our generous sponsors, ACA New York and New Jersey, Commercial Recreation Specialists, AM Skyer, for allowing us to bring this podcast to you. And, of course, Shelby, Blair, and Adam Baranker from Jeff Lake. We really appreciate your insight and your wisdom. Thanks so much. Check out our show notes for this and other episodes at daycamppodcast.com. Send us some feedback and new ideas for future pods at our address, daycampquestions@gocamppro.com. And if you don't want to miss an episode of the Day Camp Pod, then you should subscribe to iTunes or wherever you get your favorite podcast. Matt Hansberger said that 53% of the people that listen to us listen through iTunes, by the way. All right. So we should give us some iTunes love then. All right. And I would say we'll be back real soon, but we may not. We may not be back until September, because we're getting really busy at our camps. We're still enrolling kids. We got camp orientation. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on. So this may be until the end of the summer. Da, 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 da. So if it is, have an awesome summer, and we'll see you in September. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.